Hey there, it's Jen from Fabulous Paper Emporium. Welcome to my channel. Hopefully you are going to stick around because we have a pretty amazing tutorial. It's going to be the first of maybe 2 or 3 parts, but the first part is probably I don't know if it's the most exciting part, but we are going to make a mini album with file folders. Not exactly groundbreaking, but I found this one tutorial that was done a few years ago by Donna from Mini Books Are Me. And I think when I was doing some research, I think she's passed since the video's gone, since posting the video, or since I found the video anyways. So if that's the case, then, no, let's not do that. Let's not do that. Okay. Hey there, it's Jen from Fabulous Paper Emporium, and welcome to my channel. Hopefully you are going to stick around because we are making a mini album with file folders. Yes, with file folders. So as you can see here, I've got your regular run-of-the-mill manila and I was going to say envelopes, but manila file folders. I just got these at Dollarama or Dollar Tree, something like that. However, one thing I will point out at this stage is not all file folders are created equal. So I came to that conclusion very quickly after purchasing some black file folders, which I thought would be super cool, and then realized that I wasn't paying attention to the size, although it's letter size. I figured letter size is going to be the same size for everything, which it's not. The tabs are different. Anyways, I digress. So the tutorial that I'm going to do today, which is totally inspired by Donna from Mini Books Are Me. She was the Graphic 45 ambassador a few years ago, I believe. So anyways, hopefully I do this justice. We are going to start off today's tutorial. We are just going to build the book, and then part 2, which will come this weekend, I'll be using some of the Come One Come All paper from Graphic 45, and we'll be decorating it. So the decorating has been a bit more of a challenge because, although this is a very cool idea, the one thing that I maybe didn't think about was like these cute little file folder tab things. So, anyhow, this book takes up about between 10 and 12 file folders. And although you don't necessarily need to have the ones that have top, middle, and bottom, and I thought I would save myself some, but here in my preparations here, when I say top, middle, or bottom, like if you have your file folder like this, that would be a top tab. This would be a middle tab because we've got the same on either side. And if this was like this, that would be a bottom tab. So those are the 3 kind of tabs that I will have when we make our album today. But I just wanted to show you really quickly. Sorry, my pieces are... I've not collected them very well. So this is the cover. Try not to worry about these extra folds, because of course your file folder comes folded in half. And then of course you've got those other score marks. We're not going to worry too much about them, because once you've layered on your cardstock, it really is going to tighten all that up, and therefore it's really not going to be noticeable, and you're not going to be able to, fold this in a million other ways. So this is the cover. The back cover has this cute little tab. If we open it, you can tell here that this is, sorry, I apologize for my puppet dog. She's not happy that she's being left downstairs, probably by herself. Anyhow, so you've got your one part of the tab here. This is a little kind of flip thingy pocket insert. There you go. And you'll have to excuse some of these notes because I've been kind of working out how to do the top layer because obviously the top layer, I don't have any tools, not chompers, not my envelope punch board, nothing that will make this shape exactly. And that really was kind of bothering me. So I've split it in two basically. So that's kind of that's kind of a preview as to what's going on, you know, how I'm going to be decorating it. So each one of our pages, and there's 3 pages, are going to have these inserts that go in this way onto each of the pages or signatures, whichever way you want to call them. So there's, again, I've used a top tab. There's a little pocket back here. I've used a middle tab for the second one, and then a bottom tab for the third one. And each one of the pages has a little pocket in behind. And the very back, we have another one of a really deep pocket with a nice insert with a flap that goes over. So all of these inserts are going to have a magnet in behind, so they're not going to be flapping around. And that's the essence of this book. So a mini album using file folders. I didn't believe it could be done, but I really actually like, very cool idea. So thank you so much to Donna for creating this. So we are going to start by making our cover with the hinge. So I've got my cover here, and now I've got to find my hinge. They were all properly stacked, but of course, that cover pocket insert, there's a reason why I had these all labeled, and that's because I was pretty certain that at some point I would probably grab something that I shouldn't have grabbed and, you know, messed up my whole filing system. So thank goodness for notes. Okay, so first things first, to create your cover, you are going to take your file folder, and I really wished I had kept a package of the dollar store brand file folders, but I didn't. So I'm going to use one of my black ones that I purchased and then quickly realized was not at all the correct size. So I'm going to take, if you have more than, if you have top, middle, bottom, you're going to take one of your file folders that has the tab at the top. So disregard the marks and stuff. So you're going to take this, and how you're going to cut it is you are going to simply, now I found personally that cutting with the folded side towards my either guillotine or my blade. So I'm going to take out my guillotine for this purpose. And this is probably one of the times where I probably would have, in retrospect, have cut the paper in a tutorial as well. Although sometimes I don't feel like it's always needed. This probably is one of those times where I probably could have done it. So I want to keep this part, and I'm going to be cutting it at 6.5. So all I've done is I want my top tab on the left-hand side because I want to keep this. This is the side that we want. I'm just flipping it to keep my folded edge towards the top. And you're going to cut this at 6.5, right? So you've got 6.5, and you have your piece for your cover. So this is not what it's going to look like. You want it to look like this. So something with the smaller tabs would be preferable. And obviously the Hilroy brand that I purchased does not have those. So anyways, so you have one piece that's like this now. Okay, so this is going to fold over to create our little pocket on the inside flap of our cover. And we are going to be able to score and create our spine where we're going to lay our hinge. So this piece now is 6.5, and I do believe I didn't have any problems with the length of mine. So if you lay it all out, Guess it helps if I lay it out straight. My goodness. If I lay it out straight, it's like 17 and 3/8 if you don't include the tab. If you include the tab, it'll be 18 and 1/4 because it's a 1/2 inch tab. Sorry, I had to do math there, and that was difficult. Okay, so you've got your cover piece. The next piece that you're going to need is for your hinge system. And for your hinge system, we have a piece that's 8 inches by 6 1/4. And this is a solid piece. There is a little bit, if you can, I don't even know if you can make it out, but you know how with the, you can see it maybe better here, that you've got all these lines to enable your file folder to be thick or thin. So I've got a couple here, but I'm not too worried about it because there's going to be a nice, probably about, I think it's about a 2-inch, yeah, a 2-inch piece on either side that's just going to be attached to the book. So we're going to do some scoring right away because I want to get the cover done. So I'm going to grab my scoreboard. So I'm doing this a little bit differently than I probably would do like cards and things. And that's just because I want this to be a very clear process. And hopefully it's clear for everybody. Okay, so with your cover, we are going to put the back in front. And I'm just going to put the cut edge along the top. So how we're going to score this, we are going to score it at 7 inches and at 9 inches. And I just realized I have no idea where my little scoring tool went. I always keep it together with my other things. I don't think I clicked it in properly. So of course it fell on the floor as I get my squeaky. Okay, so remember, we've got the back of, this is the back of the file folder. And so we are scoring this at 7 inches and at 9 inches. Okay, so even though there's a fold here, which is where your how it came, right? Your file folder came closed and you've got a fold here, a score mark, fold mark, whatever you want to call it. We're not worried about that. The addition of other cardstock on top of this is basically going to make that go away. It's going to make it disappear. Then we're going to flip it around. So I've got now, this is the back cover. This is the front cover with your little tab here. So I'm going to, again, with my cut side up, I'm going to now score this at 2 3/4. And that is going to allow me to fold this, and then we're going to have our little pocket there. Okay, so that is done for the scoring for the cover. I'm going to set that aside, and we're now going to work on the hinge. And of course I wrote right on there. Okay, so with the hinge, if you're familiar with the kind of hidden hinge system, we're going to do a bunch of score marks, a bunch of folding, and it's magical. It's just pure magic. So with this one, we're going to be scoring at 2 inches, at 2.5, at 3, at 3.5, at 4, at 4.5, at 5, 5.5, and at 6. Okay, so we have several score lines. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9. 9 score lines, and that will create our hinge. So that is what we are going to be doing next, is I want to get all this folding done. So if you notice, And I don't know, it's really not overly clear. Maybe it's clear. No, you really can't see. So here's what I'm going to do is we are going to, you know what? I'm going to do some folding here. So I'm going to ignore the first score line and I'm going to go to the second score line. I'm going to I put my fingers at the back to kind of give it the peak, right? The mountain. And then I squeeze it down. And this way you end up, here, I should hold it like this. So this way you end up with your mountain. Okay. And then I'm going to skip the next one, the next score line, and go to the second free one. And I'm going to repeat the exact same thing that I just finished doing. So I pinch it, but then I'm going to press it down. And you can go forwards and backwards just to make sure that, you know, we've got all of your score marks. And then that looks, whoops, this one kind of flattened a little bit. Give me 1 second. Let me get that. Obviously, you take your, at some point, we will be taking our, oh my gosh, my bone folder and burnishing these really well. But you see how now we have, this is going to be 1 hinge, that's 2 hinge, and we need a 3rd hinge because we have 3 pages. So skip the next score line and go to the following one. You should only have 3 left. And you're going to fold the middle one, just like we did the other ones. Broken nail that I'm dealing with. And pinch and fold. And now we end up with something that looks like this. So there's a 2-inch panel there, a 2-inch panel there, and then of course our hinges. Now, we need these to stay together. So on the back side, so where you have the inside of your mountain, we are going to apply some double-sided tape. And I highly, 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 highly recommend the double-sided tape. The brand that I happen to use, love, and sell is the Score Tape brand. And because these are 1/2 inch increments, I'm using 3/8 inch score tape. So if you are looking for, this is like the probably the most used width score tape, at least for me personally. And it seems to be one that sells out very quickly in the store. So if you were looking for something, because it fits nicely between, it's just, obviously it's just like a hair under a 1/2 inch. So anytime you have 1/2 inch score marks, it works perfectly. It fits beautifully. So I've got, as I was talking about score tape, I should have told you what it was that I was doing. So what I'm doing is I'm only putting it on one side of my mountain. So here we have all of our mountains, okay? And I've put them only, the score tape is only on one side. We don't need to have it on both sides. That would just be a waste of product. But you do have to make sure that you put it on between the 2 score lines, then you're going to skip 2. Then between 2 score lines, then you skip 2, and then between 2 score lines, and then you should have 1 left over at the end. Okay? And so I am going to peel off my adhesive backing for all of this. And I should have started at the top because now my hand's going to go in the adhesive. That's great. Great, great, great. Okay. So now I'm just going to pinch these closed. And I'm going to pinch that one closed. Just be careful that you're not putting pressure anywhere else. And if you want to do this one at a time, instead of peeling all of the adhesive backing off at once, because it does tend to curl in on itself, do it one at a time if you need to. And that way we end up, see how it curls in? But this is what we end up with, our 3 little hinges. And I have lost my bone folder and haven't yet really thought of getting another one, but I think the time has come. My old bone folder is MIA, but you know, as soon as I purchase another one or grab one, because I think I've got some in stock, grab one from stock, I'm going to find the other one. So anyhow, okay, so you've got our 3 hinges all ready to go. The last part of this is I'm going to simply cover this back part in some score tape. Again, you really want it to be strong and secure. And so I just realized I'm totally out of the wide. So I'm going to completely cover this in score tape and I'll be right back. Okay, so now I have all of my score tape laid down. Just want to, anytime you apply score tape, want to like burnish it, make sure you have really good contact. So I do here. I'm not worried about these hinges. The hinges are meant to go backwards and forwards. So those are perfect. The next thing we're going to do is we're going to work on our cover. And so we have 3 score marks that we're going to want to burnish on here. And the first one is, so we have our piece laid out like this. The first one we should have is on the front cover. And so this, just make sure when you're folding it that you have your sides are aligned nicely before you really burnish it nice and well. Before you burnish it well, nicely, hardly, I don't know. Before you burnish it. So I just making sure that this is a nice crisp fold. Then we're going to go to our next fold line and we're going to fold that one in. We're going to do the same thing. Make sure that our left and right sides are aligned. Burnish that. And then we have our last score line. You know what? I'm going to flip that over to make sure that I can really see. Perfect. And burnish. Okay, so we have our outside, right? Don't worry about that fold line. So it's going to look a little something like this. You're going to be able to see your tab out here, and that is what it's going to look like. So the next thing we're going to do is we're going to attach our pocket. Now, there's a few ways that we can do this, but I really, really like the way that Donna had showed it in her tutorial. And it's not that I've never thought about doing it like this. I've done something like this before, but really smart idea to maximize your pocket space. So you could, if you wanted to, simply glue either side, tack it down, but just know that you're only going to be able to have an insert that is narrower than the height of your album, because you're going to have maybe about 1/8 to 1/4 of an inch on either side. Plus you also run the risk of having it laid flat, which really tightens up the pocket. So in order to avoid these two things and to use the entirety of the height, is we're going to add in these little, I'm going to call them hinges for lack of a better word, and I do have them written, hinges. So we have here, and this is going to depend also on the tabs that you have. So like I said before, not all file folders are created equal, which I totally found out the hard way. You're going to want to measure this side and this side. So mine has this little fancy corner, which is making my life very difficult when I'm doing the designing part. So I have measured mine, and mine is 2 3/4 on this side, and on the top it's 2 and I think it's, no, sorry, it's 1 3/4. So okay, so you're going to need whatever size it is. You're going to need, so I've got a 2 3/4 piece and a 1 3/4 piece, and both of these are going to need to be both of my hinge pieces are going to need to be scored at 1/2 inch. So these are 1 inch wide by whatever the length is that you are needing. Okay, I absolutely hate scoring at 1/2 inch. It's difficult, very challenging for my fingers. Hold on. Okay, so I'm going to bring that back in here. I'm going to use my score tape again. And so I'm going to put this on both I'm going to say top and bottom. Not on both sides, but like you see I'm doing both sides of the score mark. Okay, you want to keep one side open, and one side is going to have the score tape on it. All right, and this is such a nifty album. I really, really can't wait to see it decorated, because I really haven't decorated it yet. So you're going to fold on the score mark. It's a little bit challenging with a smaller piece, but got it there. All right, so like that. I'm going to do the same thing with my other piece, making sure that I've got that all aligned as much as possible. I mean, it's something that's going to be hidden, so I'm not overly worried about, you know, if one overhangs a little bit, it's not the end of the world. And then we're going to miter the corners. So I'm going from the open end to the corner, and this way you can really aim for the corner and not cut this too short. It's a little bit more helpful to go this way, because you can kind of see where the blade is aiming for. So this should fit nicely right in here. Shouldn't be able to see. If you do see a little bit of the corner, because of course there is we don't want to impede folding it down, which is why I like using, you know, this method to kind of dry fit everything, make sure it all works. So that side works nicely, and I'm just going to flip this around. I haven't taped anything down yet. I got to miter the corners. And then I'm just going to check this side really quickly. Make sure that's snug in the corner. And yeah, so I have this little fancy bit right here, but I've cut my piece so that it comes right to this point. Okay, perfect. So both sides work beautifully. So I'm going to peel off my adhesive backing, if I could. Easier said than done. And we are going to keep, obviously, the folded side is going to go towards the outside, not the inside. Just making sure that I was clear with that. And I'm going to have that on this side. So I've got my score line here, my fold line. I'm putting it just on the inside of that, right? Because we want to be able to fold this over. And I'm going to repeat the same thing on the other side. I want to keep this side free for right now and not tape down, because I want to be able to open it for this side. So again, we've got the inside, the mouth is going towards the inside of our album cover. And I've got the fold line right on the edge. And now we can peel back our adhesive backing on both sides. It is going to look like, I'm going to bring in my template, if you will. There is a lot of space in here, and it does kind of move around a little bit, the little insert that we've done. But remember, there's not a lick of designer paper. So there's going to be some designer paper on the top part, on this part, and of course on all of these sides. We're going to have designer paper all over. So I just wanted to make sure that you knew. Don't worry if the pocket seems like it's too large, because it's not. I feel like once the album is completed, it'll tuck in really nicely. And of course, once you add pictures and things, then it's going to be even better. So I'm just going to fold those two in and press down. And we have our little pocket. So that is our album cover done. The only thing we have left to do now for our cover to be done is to apply our hinge system to go on the inside. And for this part to work, I am going to do one little thing, and that little thing is to mark. If I put this right in the corner, I'm marking at 1.5 on the top and the bottom, and I'm marking at 3.5 at the top and the bottom. And I'll tell you why. I started doing this, and it makes it easier for me when I'm placing this, that I have 2 score marks right here. And if you need to make them a little bit more clear, because they can be challenging to see, of course, all of our hinge is really fitting nicely in between in our spine, right? So these 3 pieces we're aiming to have them all in between our 2 score marks, because that is what the spine is there for. So now all I'd have to do when I go to lay this down is I'm just lining up my little marks for myself, doing my best to center everything, and we are good to go. So that for me has become a little trick that I try to do, because sometimes it's really hard. You're looking top, bottom. If something shifts, then you kind of start from square one again. And, sometimes my eyeballing really does not work to my benefit. So, and apparently peeling off this score tape is not really working out to my benefit either. All right, just take a second here. Okay, so I'm going to get up for this so I have a good vantage point, because I'm wanting to, your hinge piece is a 1/2 inch narrower than the cover. So you're going to want to leave maybe you're going to leave roughly 1/8 of an inch at the top and the bottom. So I'm just going to try my best to really make that happen. I just pushed it up to the top so that I have, I know that it's straight. I'm lining up all my marks as best I can. And then I push down. All right. So now I can take my eraser, erase the little marks that I made for myself, my little guidelines. kind of did them a little bit darker than I normally do, but that's so that you can see them as well. And we are going to take, ideally, our bone folder, right? Have that all pressed down. Press it down in between so we've got all of our hinges are nice and secure. And the very last thing that we will need to do here is we didn't score our hinge so that we could actually fold our album. So that's the last thing that we're going to do. And I've made albums where I've done it before. So you have your score marks on your hinge mechanism as well. And it does, you know what, it makes it easier to fold it. But if your score marks are even just a little bit off, it does make that a whole lot more challenging. And I just realized that my nice ruler that I usually use is also downstairs. So I went to the outside to make sure that I'm using the right score mark. And I'm just going to start by folding it, gently folding it. And then you can kind of go on the inside with your bone folder as you're folding to make sure that your paper is creasing the way you want it to. Right? And once you have it started, you can go ahead and fold it all the way down. I've just got to make sure that my little hinges are folded the right way. Right? And there we go. We have one side done. I'm going to move my hinges over to the other side. And here's where you just want to pay particular attention. You wanting to use, right, our spine. I don't know what that is, but it doesn't really matter. Our spine is only 2 inches, and you are going to have this third score mark. Do not get tripped up by that. So we're only doing a 2-inch spine. So this is the score mark that I'm going to be folding on. So get that started whilst you have your eye on the correct one. I think I had done that by accident on my trial. It just felt like it was folding at the wrong place. And of course, I just went ahead and went, okay, let's fold it. And that's what kind of made my cover even more loosey-goosey than it should have been. So, all right. So once that is down, you burnish that really well, ideally with a bone folder. And now we have our cover. Our cover is done with our hinge. Okay, so I will be right back with my next step. Okay, so the next part that we're going to be doing is we need to now add our signatures to the, our wonderful folder book. And in order to create your signatures or your pages, call them whatever you want, we are going to need 6 more pieces of the file folder paper, cards, I don't even know what to call it, file folder. So these are just flat pages. They don't have any of the score marks on them. And the reason, although you could, if you wanted to, like I found with this particular, these particular file folders that I got at the Dollar Tree or Dollarama, that the score marks are very faint when it comes to, the score marks that allow you to make the file folder a little bit larger or like to hold more papers, I guess. So, if those are part of what you have left, then you can certainly cut from those, but I kind of tried to avoid that as much as I possibly could. Although I don't think it really is going to make a difference because, like I've said, for the outside, once you add cardstock to it, it's just going to add that layers of security, and these aren't going to go anywhere. So I don't feel like they're going to accidentally fold or anything. So for this, I am going to go through my notes because this was something I had done, you know, later on. Anyways, so for these, we have 3 pages, and these are 6 1/4 by 6 1/4. So you have 3 of those because we've got 3 pages. And you're also going to need 3 that are 6 1/4 by 7 1/4. So for the ones that are 6 1/4 by 7 1/4, if you've done this kind of album before with the hidden hinge, you'll know that you'll need to have some score marks applied to the larger piece. So in this case, we've got the 7 1/4 side at the top, and we're going to score at, I so don't like scoring at a 1/2 inch, but I'm going to do it. Maybe. It's just my fingers don't fit. It's just so awkward. So I'm scoring at a 1/2 inch. That's probably the last time I'm going to be doing that. And I'm scoring at 6 3/4 because it just looks so awkward. Anyhow, so we're scoring at a 1/2 and 6 3/4. If you wanted to just score at 6 3/4, spin it around 6 3/4, that is perfectly fine, because that is what I'm going to be doing for the rest of my pages, because it's just that much easier for me to go 6 3/4 and then 6 3/4, and then we're done. I don't have to try and crisscross my arms and hold on to it with just my fingernails. So anyhow, all right, so all of that is done. We are going to bring this back in. I just realized that I left my cutting mat kind of as my base, which I don't normally do. If you find it distracting, by all means, tell me. If you're not finding it distracting, then that's totally fine. I usually have the Score Pal, the mat, on here anyway, so I just thought I'd throw that out there. So where is my, oh, there it is. Duh, it's right there. Okay, so I'm going to add some score tape. Before I do any folding, I'm going to add some score tape to the edges that we just scored. I feel like I'm saying score a lot. Score. Okay, so add that to the edges, to all 3 pieces. And once all of those are done, then we are going to go ahead and fold. So just find the crease, fold, burnish. And you know what, I'm going to use this. I actually quite like that. And then fold and burnish. So I'm going to create one of the signatures here for you right now. And then I'm going to do the rest of them, you know, not on video, so that you're not just kind of sitting there watching me do it. So now that we have our 2 pages, our 2 pieces folded inwards, we're going to be laying the 6 1/4 by 6 1/4 piece on top, thus creating our hinge, not our hinge, our signature or our page, whichever way you would like to call it. That's totally fine. And personally, this is how I've been working or doing my my signatures for a little bit now. It works for me. If you have another way of applying the top page, then by all means go for it. If you're looking to try new things, then you can absolutely try this. I would encourage that always. And but if you have a you know, steadfast and true method of doing it and you're really comfortable with it, by all means. I know that there are some people that will take the sides, the adhesive backing off and apply glue. That will give you some wiggle room. So if you don't get it where you need it and you need to take it off, you can without completely damaging your paper or your cardstock or your file folders. So, but this is how I prefer to do it. I just peel a little bit off of the bottom of either end, and that will give me just a little bit of tackiness. So while I figure out how this is going to lay properly, and I like the way it's laying right now, I'm going to press that down onto my score mat and just slide my fingers down. So trying not to move it around too much, I just pull my little tab, press down, and again, I pull this tab, press down, and it's usually a pretty good match. So love that. And that's how I do my signatures. So I'm going to do the rest of these and I will be right back. Okay, so we have got our 3 signatures done. And what I had done on my original is I made a little notch at the top, which you can totally do. You can do that with a hole punch, or you can do it with if you happen to have a envelope punch board, then you can absolutely do that with that as well. And I'm starting to lean towards the envelope punch board, and I'll tell you why. Is when you do it with the envelope punch board and you want to layer up your, you know, you want to put layers on top of this of designer paper, which we're going to do. Doing it with the circle never really layers quite properly, and I'm still haven't quite figured that out yet. So if you have any tips or tricks for that, let me know. But for this one, what you can do is so easy, because I'm just going to use this as kind of like an example. When you do another notch and just bring it down ever so slightly, then you have a nice little border. You can't really see that because that's like tone on tone, but let me get another piece of cardstock, put that in behind here, open that up there. So you're punching with the exact same punch, and so obviously the cardstock that's going to be going on this as your designer paper, we can cut it with the exact same punch, and because this cardstock is going to be a little bit smaller, it leaves the really nice border, the border that I'm looking for. So anyways, that's why I'm going to be leaning towards this for when I'm punching and wanting to do my little notches at the top of my signatures. So for this signature, I don't think I put a notice as to when where you've got to line it up, but we want it halfway. Oh, that's why I didn't put anything, because it's pretty self-explanatory. You've got 6 1/4 going across, so doing 6 1/8. So if you have this lined up, this side, to the 3, did I say 6 1/8? 3 1/8, then you're going to get your notch right in the middle. It'll be a little bit tough because you're going through 2 layers, but that's basically what it's going to look like. So slide that in, line up the left side with the 3 1/8, and punch. And thankfully we just have one more left to do. If you happen to have, you know, any parts that are kind of hanging over that you want to trim off, by all means, don't stress about that. Just take your pair of scissors, trim it off carefully, making sure that you're not cutting through all 3 layers and just cutting that one layer that has gone a little bit askew, and you're good to go. Like, we're crafting here. It shouldn't be stressful. I know I say that, but you know, there are times where it is stressful, and this should not be one of those times. So you've got 3 of your signatures all done, all punched, and we are going to be putting them into our book. So one thing I forgot to do before we put this in is I needed to add some double-sided tape to my hinges. This way there's something to grab on to our signature page, our signatures, and when we go to install them. The thing to remember when you're applying your double-sided tape to your hinge is to keep the double-sided tape aligned with the very top score mark or bend. Let me just get this one in, and then I'll bring it closer so you can see what I'm talking about. So what I'm talking about is, see how I'm right at the top here. I left myself a bit of a free space at the bottom, and you want that because when we go to put on our page, oh, that's the other thing. We also will be tapering these off a bit. But when you go to install your signatures, is you don't want it, and this is why I need to miter my corners, you don't want to press it all the way down, because then when you go to fold it, it's going to start curling this bottom part and just is not going to work well for you. So, and you're going to apply that to both sides. So I'm just going to go applying it to one side, then I'm going to flip it around. So keeping the score tape, my guide is the very top of our hinge. All the time. It's the very top of your hinge. So just keep that in mind. You can also do this part before you apply your hinge system into the book. It's a little bit easier that way. So by all means, feel free to do that. Okay, now I'm going to make sure that all of my score tape has been really pushed down, really applied very securely to my hinges. And then I'm just going to come with my scissors and take off a little bit, miter these corners a bit, which will make, I've got paper flying all over the place now, which is going to make it easier to add our signatures to this album. Ooh, going all over the place. That's always fun. Okay, so we have our hinge system all ready to go. I would definitely recommend, and I had totally forgot to do this, but definitely recommend, you know, applying your score tape and cutting off, doing that mitering before it's in the book, because it's a little bit more challenging once it's in. So now that we're there, we can go ahead and install all of our signatures. And I'm going to do something very similar to how I create my signatures by just peeling off a bit of the score tape on either side. And this way I feel like I can maneuver it a little bit more easily than if I had just torn off the signature, the double-sided, you know, the adhesive backing. If I tear that off and I slip it on and I accidentally press it or it gets stuck, then you're kind of, you know, you got to deal with it. So with the glue, you could also add some glue that will give you a little bit of wiggle room. But how we're going to do this is we're just going to slide this on top. And I'm just looking to make sure that I've left myself about 1/8 of an inch, maybe not even quite 1/8 of an inch. And then once I'm happy with it, I also like laying it down a little bit because you can also tell there how you know, square it is to your cover. And once I like it, I'm just going to press down. So now I have it fairly secure, and we're just going to be very gentle with how we pull this, right? Because we don't want to tear that apart. And then we're going to do the same thing to the back. So we're just going to gently tear that off and then secure it down in place. And we have our first signature added. And I'm just going to continue and do that for my other 2 signatures, and I will be right back. Okay, so we've got all of our signatures added to our book. I've got a nice pile of adhesive backing on the side here. That's how you know we're getting stuff done. And so I think we need to go into doing, oh wait, back pocket. So we want to add a back pocket, or, well, I'm calling it the back pocket, but it's the pocket that goes on the back cover. And so I'll flip back to here. So for this back pocket, we used a insert with the center tab, or the middle tab, and just a notched pocket here. So it's nice and deep, can hold lots of fun stuff. I decided that for the second time around, instead of wasting the you know, the opposite to the middle hinge or middle tab, that I'm going to use the middle tab for my pocket. So it's going to go something like this. So there's 2 ways of doing it. If you don't want to worry about trying to get this in the middle, by all means, you simply need to cut a piece that is going to be 7 3/8 by 6 1/4. Is that what it is? Sorry, I am, oh, that's why. Back pocket, 7 3/8 by 6 1/4. And then we're going to be scoring this, which I should take out instead of just talking about it, with the 7 3/8 across the top. We're going to be scoring this at 1/2 inch on either side. So however you want to do that, but so it's either, it's going to be 1/2 inch, and then we are going to be doing we're doing 1/2 inches, right? Yeah, so this is going to be 6 7/8, and then 1/2 inch. So I'm just going to flip it over because, again, awkwardness. Nobody wants to see that. And then once you have both sides done, then we're also going to do a score mark at the bottom. And it's not going to really matter if you're not worried, if you don't have this center tab notch at the top, then you're not going to have to worry about it. You're just going to have a rectangular piece, and you can do your notches afterwards. So 6 1/4, we're going to just be doing this at 5 3/4. Okay, so you've got score mark, score mark, score mark. So if you are doing the center tab business, then from this particular file folder, which I don't know, I don't remember if I gave the full measurement yesterday. These ones are, they're 11, they're kind of between. So it's kind of between 11 5/8 and 11 3/4 is kind of how wide that is. And then depends if I'm including the tab or not. Depends on how, you know, high it is. But for this particular purpose, right, because we want this section of the file folder, what I did was I took 2 3/16 off of each side to get my width, and then my height is going to be constant, and that's going to be 6¼ inches. So how I did that was I just kind of cut this at 6¼ inches right from the top of that, and then worked out that I needed to cut off a little bit from either side. So that's how I got this. And I'm going to bring my mat back here so I can do my folding. I'm going to apply my tape before I do that. So again, going to my 3/8 of an inch, because that is the go-to for here. And I'm going to apply my score tape all the way around. We're going to do some mitering, and then we're going to fold, because it's easier in that, my gosh, I don't know what I'm trying to say. In that sequence, it's easier to do it in that sequence. That's what I was trying to say. So for this, I'm going to cut towards my corner. I'm just aiming towards where the divot is from your score mark, and then I'm just going to angle that off. So it's not quite cutting it across, but I angled it towards where I did my corner. I don't want to cut off the corner per se. So where you see that I have that little, like I said, that little valley, the little groove that you get from doing your score mark, I'm just aiming towards that. And then once I hit there, I just kind of angle it off. So I've got my nice, clean, crisp mitering done. I'm going to burnish this really well. And then I'm going to fold in my sides. I'm going to erase what I have written on there as my notations, although that's super handy. And ultimately it's going to get covered, and it's going to get covered with some pretty colorful cardstock. So I don't think I'm not overly worried about it, you know, making a difference, but I'm still gonna get rid of it anyways. Okay, so that is going to be my pocket, and there, again, multitude of ways to apply your pocket on the inside. There's a couple of things that you are going to want to be mindful of. A is we have this fold right here to be careful of. Don't want to go past it, otherwise your book is not going to fold. Your back cover is going to be kind of useless. So we want to be just on the inside, and you know, to give ourselves a nice little border. There's maybe about a 1/16 of an inch to an 1/8 of an inch, somewhere in between, on the left side and the right side. And then the bottom, you can do the same if you wish. I'm going to put it right down to the bottom. I'm only pausing here because I think, because of the space that's there. No, you know what? I thought for a minute that maybe I should put some designer paper, but honestly, this is such a big pocket. You're going to have a little bit showing on either side for what? And you're going to have most of it covered. So I'm not going to do that. Sorry, I just had a moment of reflection there. So how I do my bottom pockets is I like to do something very similar to how I do just about everything else, because I don't use glue for a lot of these, is I peel back some. Sometimes there's enough for that to stick. Sometimes there's not. I'm just going to peel back a little bit of this adhesive backing from all three sides. I start off at the bottom and kind of move my way up. Okay, there we go. And this way I have a little bit more control. Like once the sides are kind of tacked down a little bit, then I don't, you don't have them trying to flop out quite as much. And I feel like I have a little bit more control then. So, okay, so we are trying to give ourselves a bit of a border on the right hand side and the left hand side, and on the bottom I'm just trying to line that up as best I can with the bottom of the cover. So I'm going to, whoops, hide that a little bit over to the one side as opposed to the other. So that's the nice thing about just having a little bit. If it adheres a little bit, easier to kind of get it wiggled out. And then I do just like I did before. I slowly pull out my tab and then apply that. Oh, it looks like my bottom tab. There we go. And my other side tab. Okay, so there is my bottom, my back, I don't know what you want to call it. The back cover pocket. There, we're going to call it the back cover pocket. I'm trying to say it 3 times fast and it's just not working out for me. So we're going to have an insert that goes in there, which is easy enough to do. But again, if you are not overly concerned about the tab situation, but I think that's what makes this, it makes it a file folder mini album. So you really do want to make sure that you're taking advantage of all the tabs that you have at your disposal. Oh, the dogs. So we have, sorry, a little bit of a distraction there from the puppy dogs. We have a 6-inch piece. So in order to get this for the file folders that I was using, I needed to cut 2 7/8 off of each side. And then for the length, we're doing, it's 10 inches without the tab. So I'm just lining that up with, to this part right here. Not worried about the tab. If you're including the tab, it's about 10.5 inches. The tabs aren't quite exactly a 1/2 inch. They're close, but not exact. And then for these ones, this one, we're going to be scoring that at the 6-inch, at the 6-inch mark. So we're making a nice square. So we're doing 6 inches from the bottom cut side. Okay, so I'm not going to worry too much about this fold down at the bottom. Again, we're going to be adding some paper to it. I apologize if you hear the dog going nuts. There's absolutely nobody else here. So I'm it as far as the line of defense comes to getting the dogs to settle down. So that is how it's going to fold in. It's going to go nicely in there. And then once we have the designer paper on here, you're not going to notice that fold either. Okay, so we're going to do the rest of our inserts and then we'll be done. Okay. I think this is the longest amount of time that it's taken me to get through this tutorial. So now that we have our book basically done, our wonderful file folder mini album, there are a couple of other things that we are going to need to do. So we have our inserts, and then I just realized that there's a spine support that we haven't put. It isn't really essential. I mean, now that we have the book together, there is an extra piece that we can put on this side. And I mean, it really is up to you. I have it on my the tester that I was doing, that I created. So I have it on here. It does lend a bit more support to that. So if you're wanting to put it on, I would put it on before installing the hinge system. And that's of course what I did, but it was hiding and I didn't see it, and I was remiss in not having it added. But you could always add it afterwards. I am going to add it. I'm just going to slap on some double-sided tape, some of my score tape, and just get that added on. And you are going to add another layer, or I am anyways going to add another layer of decorative cardstock, so we fancy it all up. But you know, this is just going to give it some additional support. You don't want it kind of flopping around. So I get why. There's definitely a reason why, so I definitely understand that. And of course, you don't really have to cover it as much as I'm covering it right now, but I definitely don't want to have it go anywhere. So I'm going to add to the ever-growing pile of adhesive backing strips on my craft table. I don't know if you can see them, but some of them have made their way to the garbage. But usually after I'm done the project is when all that gets cleaned up. I don't know if you're the same way or not. So to do this, I'm going to lay this down kind of as flat as I possibly can. It's roughly about 1/8 of an inch difference. So you're going to have just a hint of a border around the outside. I could have gone a little bit further down, but it's all the same color. Nobody's going to see it. So you see where that is. So it makes it a little bit stiffer. So there's definitely method behind the madness. And so now that we have that part done, I'm going to set that aside for a minute, and we are going to work on our small pockets. These small pockets are going to go on the back side. So we're going to have an insert that goes in here, and it's going to fall over. That's not the right word. It's going to cascade over. That's much nicer. So you see how our inserts have this little flap here that pulls out. So we're going to do these pockets that are on the back side. And our little pocket pieces are, oh my gosh, I just need to be able to pick them up and we can move on. So these are 7 1/4 by 3 inches. And similar to how we did the back pocket, right? So this pocket that we did back here, where we scored on 3 sides, that's exactly what we're going to be doing for this one. And so I apologize for the Band-Aid. I had a nail accident, so I am partially missing a nail. Anyhow, so we are going to score this as not really sure. I like scoring over there, but you're going to score a 1/2 inch on either side. So it's a 1/2 inch on this side and then 6 3/4 on the other side. I'm just going to do 6 3/4, switch it around, do 6 3/4, and then with the 3 inches at the top, we're going to score at 2.5. And you're just going to repeat that for all 3 pieces. Then we're going to do some mitering, some double-sided taping, and some installing, I guess, would be our three parts to this puzzle. And we are done. Okay, so I'm going to bring my score mat back in, and using our trusty score tape, I just wanted to make sure this was the right size. I'm going to go around, apply my score tape to the same area. So the areas between the outer edge and the score lines that we have just made, I'm going to show one, and then I'll just get the rest of them finished off camera. So just like what we did on the back pocket, we're going to miter the corners. So we're just going to go in towards where the score lines meet. So where you have that little groove, I'm aiming towards that. And then you can either go from this way or just kind of veer off. So it's not quite a straight line, because if I do a straight line, and I was doing a straight line for quite a bit there, but then found like I was clipping just the edge of the pocket. So when you fold all your pieces, it wasn't it wasn't coming to a nice point. It was kind of like a weird situation. So I stopped cutting straight across because it wasn't working out for me. So that was just as simple as that. Okay, so you really want to burnish these down. You want to get them as flat as you possibly can. But like what I did with the back pieces, I'm going to peel. I may end up peeling all of this off. It was amazing. This time last week, we were all in t-shirts and shorts, and now it's sunny, but it is cold, and I can hear the wind whistling. So it was just a little, hopefully a little taste. Well, it was a bit too hot for my liking, but hopefully a little taste of what's to come. So with the warmer weather. No, warmer, not, incredibly hot. Please. Okay. Oh, whoops. I guess it helps if you start kind of a little tab on either side. It's not as big, so it's not as cumbersome to add into your album as the back pocket. But if you are, like me, and eyeballing just doesn't always work for you, I have all the pressure is on the top, so I can move it around freely. And when I like where it's positioned, and I'm going to position it first on this left-hand side, because we have the page is going to want to flip, right? So we don't want to get that in the way of the hinge. So placing it like so and making sure that your fit on the left-hand side is correct. It usually means that on the right-hand side you're good, but it's always good to double check it first, and that way you can make any alterations if you absolutely need to. And I like where that is, so I'm just going to peel the bottom piece off. There we go. And then I'm going to peel these little tabs on either side, and I like where that is positioned. And I just realized I forgot to do something. What did I forget to do? I forgot to do my notch. Now that it's in, really not going to be possible, I don't think. No, not with how this works. So, well, I think that, that's really disappointing. I am wondering, there is a way to fix it. It's a little bit cumbersome with everything that I got going on here. So what am I going to do? I really do like the notches because it kind of, makes things a little bit more continuous. We've got the notches in the pockets here. We have like the whole file folder thing with tabs. So I feel that looks rather plain without the notch. So my options are try to remove it, which I may do. The other option is to notch these ones. And this is looking so pretty. But I really didn't. No, I'm going to have to cut that again if I do that. And then I might mangle that page. So I think I'm going to go the alternative route. Okay, so if you are wanting to notch these pages, you're going to take your envelope punch board again. I'm doing both of these at the same time. And you are going to want to notch this at 3 5/8. 3 5/8 is right here. I know it can go through 2 layers because we've done 2 layers before when we're doing our signatures. So now that those are done, my thought process is this. I'm not going to do this on camera. I'm basically going to lay this on top, give me my notch area, take my pencil, draw it out, and then with my craft knife, we'll come back and cut that out. So I'm not going to do that on camera. Nobody wants to see that. I'm going to finish with the rest of my my pockets now that they're notched. And all my notes are, of course, are sitting right beside me, but they're not being very helpful. They're not smacking me across the head going, you forgot to notch your pocket. So anyways, so I'm going to continue doing this and I will be right back. Perfect. So all said pockets are now installed and no one would be any the wiser. Notch pocket, notch pocket, and my last notch pocket. So doing the tracing worked out completely fine. I'm totally happy with it. All I did was I have this little tiny self-healing mat. It's a smaller one. So I just slid it in under the corner. Thankfully, this lays pretty flat. And went around it with my handy dandy X-Acto blade and we're good to go. The only thing that I can say is that if you do happen to make this mistake and really want to have it notched, you can absolutely do the same thing. Just go over, don't try to cut the paper or the file folder with one pass. It's much easier to get that nice curve if you take 2, 3, 4 passes to cut the file folder. That's the only tip that I can offer you for there. Well, the first tip would be not to forget it. But since I can't manage to do that, then, you know, stuff happens, right? Stuff happens. So now we have all of our inserts. So there are 2 different sizes of inserts that we are going to do. The first one is for the front cover, and it's slightly different than the one that we have for all of our signatures. So this one is, and we've cut this one already. So this one is 11 inches long, not including the tab. And this one is 6 1/4 inches wide. And all we are going to do with this one is, I think we are scoring it in half, if I'm not mistaken. Spine. Of course, I've got to find my notes. Front cover pocket insert. We are scoring this at 5 1/2. So that will be half of 11 is 5 1/2. So we are putting our straight edge on the left-hand side. So tab is on the right. And we are scoring this at 5 1/2. Perfect. And as we fold it, are we putting the tab? Yes, we're putting the tab at the top. So we are going to make sure that everything, well, my scoring there was a little bit askew, but that's why we make sure before we start burnishing that our, you know, like our top and bottom edges and everything is lined up nice and perfectly, as perfect as it can be. I'm just going to burnish that well. So this is meant to go in like so. So folded. If you want to at the end, and I do believe I did it in my sample, you can round off the corners. It does get a little bit challenging over here to round that corner. So it's entirely up to you if that's what you want to do. So I'm going to stuff that in there. It is a bit of a snug fit. It does kind of move around a little bit, but remember, as you add the layers, it's really going to be a nice snug fit. So you don't have to worry about that if it's a little bit loosey-goosey right now. The next thing that we're going to do, and the final thing, because I have no more pieces, so these are it. We're going to be doing the rest of our inserts for each of our signatures. And so these ones are all the same. They're 11 inches by 6 inches. And I don't believe we're folding these ones in half. Okay, so yes, so we're going to be scoring these at 6 inches. Here's 6 inches. Just bring in our next piece. Remember, we're always putting the cut edge at the left-hand side. The tab is going to be on your right. And all we have to do is score these at 6. And we are done. We are done for video number 1. So I'm just going to go ahead and put these all in. So like I said earlier, video number 2 is likely to come, or part 2 for this amazing file folder album, mini album, is coming on the weekend, on Sunday. I still am working out, you know, paper choices and things like that. Working out the measurements, especially where the little tabs are concerned. I was saying in my, like earlier, that I don't have a tool that will give me that precise. I don't know that there is really a tool that exists for this particular need because this angle is going to be different. It's different for the punch boards. I don't have a chomper that will do that. So it's something that, you know, obviously we're working around, and it's going to be equally as beautiful. So, yeah. And the paper that I'm going to be using to decorate is the, excuse me, is the Kamoin Kamal by Graphic 45, which we do have in store right now if you're interested. And yeah, so hopefully you have enjoyed this part so far, and you'll join me on the weekend for a special edition of part 2. And yeah, I am so happy that you joined us today. Hopefully you have found this useful or inspiring in some way, shape, or form. If you have any questions or comments, leave them below. I do look at all of them, and I appreciate all of your feedback as well. And if you'd like it, give it a big thumbs up. If not, you can give it a big thumbs down. That's totally fine. You know, everybody has their own preference, I guess. And all I can say is thank you so much for joining me. If you haven't already subscribed, hit subscribe. I see those numbers climbing, and I am eternally grateful for that. So thank you so much for joining me today. Hopefully you have a fabulous rest of your day, and you stay safe and well. Thanks. Bye.